So today we are going to be covering one of the most beloved zombie movies that has been recommended by a lot of you. I would even go as far to say it is one of the best found footage movies. Full stop. I'm so brave, I know. When a TV producer and our cameraman decide to go on a ride along with their fire department for a segment on their show, it starts off very quiet, but it soon gets turned upside down when a routine wellness check turns into a KFC from hell, and they become part of the menu. So join me as we follow the crew through some intense moments, downright annoying character decisions, and an increasingly hopeless attempt to escape in wreck. Now quickly before we get into this, I just want to shout out my good friend Hickey GG, and that's because he is one of the people who recommended me to watch this movie, and he also recommended me to watch #I'mAlive, but I am a silly boy and I completely forgot to give him credit where credit was due. I also posted a bit of a clue onto YouTube for you guys to try and guess what movie I was going to be covering in this video, and it seems I made it too easy because every single person that commented got it right. So a quick shout out to Satan, butchered that, sorry, Pow_1 and Jordan's 4362. Thanks to everyone for participating in that, and I definitely will be doing that going forward. So if you want a shout out or just to be mentioned in a video, keep an eye out on the page because I'm going to be putting up these little games for you to try and guess what movie I'm making the video on, and if you get it, I'll put you in the video. Simple. But with that out of the way, let's jump right into the carnage. The movie begins with the presenter Angela and her cameraman Pablo trying to film the intro segment for their TV show and failing miserably.
Hoy, como cada noche, vamos a compartir estos minutos nocturnos con de bomberos en su recorrido nocturno y me ahogo.
I can't even judge because this quite literally is exactly what the raw file of this video is going to look like. I literally messed up saying that line at least 4 times. Trying to film the intro segment, oh my god. I can't even judge because what... So, Slay Queen were twins. But anywho, they are planning to spend the night with the firemen and basically just go around showing how they live, what they do on a day-to-day basis, just to kind of get an inside scoop on what it's like. Getting introduced to the firemen while they're having lunch, then just gets a quick run through as to what they do as firemen. After a while, Angela and Pablo start to get very bored and pretty much just try to find anything that they can put their camera onto to keep their minds occupied. But luckily for the boys, it's about to become a lot more exciting. But unfortunately, it's not going to be in the way that they're looking for. But before that, there's 2 people that I want to introduce to you lot. This is Manu and this is Alex, both of which are firemen that are going to be joining us onto our adventure into hell. Angela eventually joins some of the boys on the b-ball court and gets absolutely run through. But before she could get embarrassed any further, the alarm bell rings and all of the boys waste no time to jump into action. And within literal minutes, if not seconds, they are in the fucking fire truck and making their way to the location. That's one thing that I always need to take my hat off to any firemen out there. The speed you cunts get ready at it needs to be studied. They pull up to an apartment building and they are quickly greeted by a bunch of residents in the lobby who tell them that they were called because one of the residents heard their neighbour screaming and wanted to do a wellness check. The police chief, who was already on site, comes down the stairs and he seems less than pleased to get a big camera shoved in his face. But when Manu explains the situation to him, he basically just tells them to stay out of the way, before proceeding to give the men a rundown on the situation. When they get to the room, they quickly break the door down and they see a pretty fucking creepy sight, if I'm honest with you. A flustered old woman who is at the end of the hallway, and they cautiously head in, and this is a moment that shows just how clumsy our young Pablo is. Yeah, this is not a man that you want to do a late night kitchen run with. You would get caught in a heartbeat. The officials get annoyed by it and tell Pablo to turn the camera off and put it down, but Pablo is sneaky because instead of, turning it off, he just puts it down and keeps the camera rolling. And luckily he did, because we see the policeman trying to calm down the flustered woman by telling her that there is an ambulance outside for her. And as soon as he turns to talk to his co-workers, the woman takes this opportunity to jump onto him and latch onto his face. Everyone jumps in and tries to detach this woman from this man's face, and after a bit of a struggle they manage to do so, but unfortunately she took a big chunk of his cheek for the road. Not an ideal start, to say the least, but unfortunately it gets worse. The men rush the chief downstairs for some help, and Angela shows that she is a true content creator by telling Pablo to make sure that he records everything, you know, instead of showing any care or worry about the man who now looks like a half-eaten Big Mac. But anywho, while they are making their way downstairs, you can feel the tension and just the panic building with these guys, and it soon gets worse when all of the lights turn off and they hear the woman still screaming in the background. Things sadly get a lot worse once they actually make it to the lobby, because when they get down there they find out that there is a whole squadron of policemen outside the building, and they get told that they are not allowed to leave, and they do not even explain why. Oh yeah. Fuel me! They put pressure on the chief's wound and try to stop the bleeding, but tensions have already started to reach their boiling point, as one of the officers lashes out at Pablo for filming him while he was using his walkie-talkie. And I'm not gonna lie, I completely understand this officer's frustration with this guy. And not, you know, a small cannon or anything like that. This is these big cunts, you know, the ones that you have on your shoulder like a rocket launcher. So just imagine that. Your police chief is on the ground, in agony, possibly about to bleed out. You don't know the situation, you don't know why this woman even attacked your chief, and now you are being told that you are not allowed to leave the premises, and you don't know why, and you're trying to figure out why, and you have this big cunt right beside you with a big camera in your face. I completely get it. They are all gathered around the lobby trying to figure out what is even happening, and the resident says that her husband is outside and says that there is a lot of police out there, and that they will not let him in, which is quite unfortunate because he has antibiotics for his daughter, which is this girl in this mother's hand. I'll actually tell you her name. Her name is Jennifer. But Jennifer, as her mother describes, has tonsillitis, and that's why she needed the antibiotics. But sucks to suck, I guess. You're not getting it. But the convo gets cut very short when all of a sudden they hear screaming coming from above, followed by Alex hitting the deck, dropping it like it is hot, as the youth would say. Which obviously put a dampener on the convo. Panic erupts amongst the group, and Manu runs over to check on his mate before they hear a blood-curdling scream coming from upstairs before the officer turns the camera off. Bit rude. I wanted to know what was happening next, but luckily we don't have to wait long. When it comes back on, they are already close to the source of the screaming, and we hear Angela say, "I don't care what they say, keep recording." Obviously, again, caring more about the footage than the situation, and no scene proves this more than what I'm about to describe to you. Pablo and Angela make it to the apartment where the old lady attacked the chief, and they are by themselves. Pablo starts making his way in by himself, and after a bit a woman shows herself, and she has definitely seen better days. She stumbles towards them before she eventually hits the deck and is presumed to be dead. Who is this woman? I have no fucking clue, if I'm honest. I don't remember her being there in the first encounter. Manu and the officer show up and ask them what they are even doing here, but before they could get a response, the old woman from earlier appears at the end of the hallway again, doing her signature move, the aura off. The officer raises his gun and warns her to stay put, but she is too much of a fucking boss and completely ignores his warning, rushing towards him and forcing the officer to open fire, killing her. Everyone is in shock, especially the officer who, you know, pulled the trigger, and Manu goes over to try and comfort him and lead him away. But before he does, the officer notices the camera and rushes at Pablo, calling him an asshole. Manu holds him back and leads him away, but even Manu seems fed up with this cunt at this point, giving him a bombastic side eye as he walks away. Angela is stunned, making me in the moment believe that, oh, she might have only realised the severity of the situation. But nah, I gave her too much credit, because the first words out of this woman's mouth are, "Did you get that?" before proceeding to force him to show her the footage. Like, damn! How much are they paying this woman? Because it must be fucking big boy bucks, you know? It must be the big dollars if she is really worrying more about the fact that the cameraman got the shot, other than the fact that the old woman caught a shot to the face. But I will say that I do like how when she asks him to rewind the footage and show her to her, we actually see the footage getting rewound. And it's a small little detail, but kind of adds to that found footage aesthetic of the whole thing. And this movie does found footage very fucking well. I really like how they do it. Now, after this moment, the camera abruptly cuts to them running back down the stairs and Angela saying, Pablo, get this. And when they get there, we see that Manu has had enough of this shit and says that he is going to search for another way out of here. To which the officer responds by saying that we were ordered to keep everybody here, and Manu, being an absolute beast, turns around and says there are 2 people dying, fuck orders. What a legend. When they make it to the other exit, they see that it is also blocked off and there are tons of police outside. And Angela starts to commentate the situation, giving us a bit of a commentator rundown, if you will. And then the police start screaming stuff at them that is very interesting, to say the least. They tell them that the building is officially in lockdown and they are doing a BNC protocol. And we see that Manu, upon hearing this, is very fucking confused. And another thing that they say is that a health inspector will be there in a little bit to, inspect the scene. Now, Manu wasn't confused because he had no idea what a BNC protocol was. He is confused because he does know what it is, and he doesn't understand how it ties in here. Because when he gets asked about it, he says that it is a procedure used in biological, nuclear, and chemical threat situations. So you can understand why the fuck he's confused. The residents start to demand answers, but the officers inside are just as clueless as them, and the little girl Jennifer starts burning up due to her tonsillitis. And that's when one of the residents say that there is an office upstairs that they can use to get out of the building. When they get there, they see just how big and widespread this operation has become, with like hundreds of police officers and officials outside. They instantly get told to step away from the window for their own safety, aka if you don't move, I'm shooting you in the face. And after they say this, they drop a giant white tarp around the entire building, blocking all visibility from the inside. The officer shows up and he is equally confused as to what the fuck is happening, and when he sees Pablo, filming for the gram once again, he snaps and grabs the camera, which results in a big argument taking place between the group that ends with the officer pulling out his pistol and aiming it at everybody, before telling them that he is in charge and they need to go downstairs. And after a little bit, Manu eventually calms him down and he actually apologizes for his actions, and he just goes on to say it's because he was stressed, which I cannot fucking blame the guy, like honestly. And when they are discussing the situation with the 2 injured, we find out that one of the residents actually has a little bit of training when it comes to this. And by little bit, I mean he was an intern and all he ever really did was give people shots, really. But he's the best we have, so he goes upstairs to get all of his equipment to try and patch up the men as best as he can. And we learn this because Angela eventually goes on to interview him later on. But first I want to talk about how the fuck this building is laid out, because it baffles me. I've never seen an apartment complex like this, because when you walk into the building, first of all, you are in the lobby, but in the background you can see a shutter that has been locked, and when the guy goes and gets his supplies, they end up opening that shutters, and do you want to guess where the fuck it brings them? Into a big fuck off workshop with plenty of room for activities, and they kind of use it as a base of operations for, helping these people out. Is this normal? To just have an entire fucking rec room in the back of the apartment block, because I personally have never seen anything like that, so it kind of confused me. But during this section, not much really happens. They give the guys some injections and patch them up to the best of their ability, and while they're doing so, Angela and Pablo interview a lot of the residents. As Angela is interviewing these people, it becomes a common consensus that something very strange is amiss here. And I have to point out that the acting from Jennifer's mother in this scene is genuinely insane, because she's explaining that she still believes that there is somebody upstairs due to the fact that the fireman, Alex, ended up falling from there. And we also have this older man called Caesar, who actually was kind of funny when he was doing his little one-on-one interview with them. And he does end up being kind of cool throughout the rest of the movie. But he starts to blame the foreigners in the room for this situation, the Chinese people. But his reasoning for why it's them is because they eat raw fish, and that fish is smelly. So obviously they are the cause of this fucking zombie outbreak. I don't know where the logic comes from. But then the health inspector arrives, and in quite dramatic fashion, if I do say so. And at one point Pablo just stands there, idly, and the guy almost walks headfirst into the camera, and Pablo doesn't even attempt to move. But the inspector is here to take some bloods and to try figure out what's happening, or at least that's what he says at first. And during this, we find out a good bit of interesting factoids. We find out that the Chinese woman's father is upstairs still in their apartment, and he is very sick, like bedridden type of sick, which instantly makes people jump at her and accuse her father of being the cause of all this. But it's soon followed up by Jennifer saying that dog was very sick and they had to bring her to the vet. Now, for a bit of a tension breaker, I want to point out this funny moment. The camera gets turned off after what I just described, and when it comes back on, we see Jennifer, like a true child, just messing with and poking the lens while she is uncomfortably close to the thing. It's just kind of a cute moment that I wanted to shed a bit of light on before shit goes off the rails. Angela pulls Pablo to the side and we actually see some constructive thinking here. Bit of actual intelligence in this movie. It's fucking great, because she goes on to say that if this virus is contagious, the two people who have been bit are also infected. And then we get another very annoying moment from the gang, because while the inspector is in there doing his thing, Pablo tries to get a bit of a video of him before the officer quickly closes the door in his face. And instead of, just accepting defeat like most people would and just trying to ride the situation out for a little bit, this man must know that he is making a movie, because Angela tells him to hop up on a table and stick the camera through a cracked open window to get a better view of the situation. And the entire time, Angela is in the background asking Pablo to tell her what he sees, and it's just very fucking annoying. She's non-stop like, Pablo, 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 what's happening, Pablo? Pablo, tell me, Pablo.
Cuidado, Pablo. ¿Ves algo? Pablo, ¿qué ves? ¿Que unas esposas a quién? Pablo, coño, ¿qué ves? Joder, Pablo, dime qué ves. Pero dime algo, joder. ¿Qué dicen? ¿Están hablando?
And it only gets worse throughout the movie. It gets very fucking annoying. I've heard the name Pablo more times than any other name in existence, bro. But Pablo's trying to do the reasonable thing and be sneaky about the whole thing and quiet, but Angela just keeps screaming at him to tell her what's happening, and I don't know how, but they just don't get caught. But the people inside have bigger fish to fry, because while the inspector is going around and examining these two men, he also handcuffs them to the gurney, and he injects them with some substance. They don't really explain it. But while the inspector has his back turned, the chief lashes out and grabs him and tries to attack him. And while trying to help, the intern ends up getting bitten himself, while the officer and Manu try to hold the infected people down before running out of the room, leaving glasses behind and locking the door. He starts pleading, saying that he wasn't bitten and please let him out, but the inspector says that he should be fine since the infected are handcuffed, so he should just stay away from them. But suddenly a man appears and smacks the door so hard that the window smashes and everyone flees. They run back to the lobby and they close the shutter behind them. Everyone is fed up at this point and start pressing the inspector for some answers, and after a bit of convincing, he eventually tells them that they got a call from a vet about a dog with an unknown sickness. The dog went into a coma, but a little bit later it came to and started acting vicious towards the other animals, and when they checked its tracker, it led them to this building. It was Jennifer's dog, and as soon as everyone hears that, all the attention gets pushed onto them. The inspector tries to go up and make sure that the girl is not infected, but her mother swears that it's just tonsillitis. But suddenly, Jennifer bites her mother in the face, jumps down and starts shrieking before running up the stairs. And they waste no time in restraining the mother and handcuffing her to the staircase. And after a bit of scolding, he hands them a syringe and tells them to go and get Jennifer. They make their way up and get to the room of the old lady from before, and when they get there, her body is gone. So they do the reasonable thing and investigate. They hear a few questionable noises but continue on into the apartment before Manu spots Jennifer and the officer takes the syringe and tries to calmly walk towards her. And fuck me, this child is nightmare fuel. Look at this thing. For anyone who is knowledgeable when it comes to me watching these movies, I am terrified of little girls in these movies. They scare the shit out of me. Ever since The Ring? Nah. That can go fuck itself, because we have like an urban legend in Ireland called the Banshee, and what the Banshee is a girl in a fucking nightgown with really long hair, and the rumor goes that whenever you see her, she would be sitting there nonchalantly brushing her hair while singing a tune to herself, and then when you get close to her, she lashes out and kills you, kind of like the witch out of Left 4 Dead. So having that urban legend growing up, mixed with seeing The Ring, mixed with seeing The Grudge, mixed with all of these other horror movies that involve children, they can go fuck themselves. So this scene scared the living shit out of me. I just wanted to touch on that. Jennifer doesn't respond, but as soon as the officer looks away to talk to Manu for a second, she takes that chance to leap onto his face. They struggle for a bit and Jennifer is letting out these really loud cat-like screeches while doing so, but the officer eventually restrains her and tells Manu to run because Jennifer managed to bite him. So he holds her so that the others can escape safely, but while running they run into the old lady from earlier and Manu swiftly deals with her with a sledgehammer of all things, and they continue down the stairs. But while going down the stairs they are met by a bunch of other residents that seem to be trying to flee from something, followed by some of the residents saying to not go down there because they are getting out. And when they get down the stairs they see that the infected behind the shutter have realised that they have opposable thumbs and are opening the shutter by themselves. Manu swiftly runs over and tries to close the door and manages to do so for a little bit at least, and instantly he runs to try and free the mother who is still handcuffed to the stairs, but they come to the sad realisation that the policeman that just got infected is the one that has the keys. The shutter starts opening again and Manu swiftly runs over to try close it and he starts asking for help, and when he does, the inspector, instead of, actually helping the guy, flees. He runs away like a bitch. So Angela runs over to give him a helping hand and Pablo does nothing. He just stands there and films the whole thing, doesn't even attempt to put the camera down. They try to keep it closed for a little bit, but unfortunately it's no use. Manu says to run and Angela instantly goes over to try and help the mother out, but Manu swiftly grabs her and runs up the stairs as the woman starts to get mauled by the infected. They run upstairs and run into Caesar, who swiftly brings them into his apartment and closes the door behind them. And it's here that they start discussing what to do next, and nobody fucking knows. Everybody is panicking, clueless, no idea what's happening. Caesar, being weirdly the most composed of the group, says that they should wait for help to come and save them, and Angela, very loudly I might add, starts screaming that nobody is coming to save us because they don't care about us. Like, freaking out, screaming at the top of her lungs type shit, while they are trying their best to not alert the people outside of where they are.
Sí.
¡Abrid los ojos de una puta vez! ¡No les importamos ni una mierda! ¡Nos van a dejar aquí hasta que...
Caesar follows it up by saying that they will come because the doctor is still here and they care about the doctor. And he then brings up the fact that the doctor is in this apartment. Manu snaps and goes to give the inspector a piece of his mind for leaving him, but when he gets face to face with him, the inspector tells him to leave because he has been bitten. And he then closes the door and locks himself inside before saying that this door will not hold, so you should get out of here. They then go to the window and the police tell them the same thing as always, telling them to get away from the window, and it's here that Caesar has a big light bulb moment and figures out a way to escape. He goes and talks to Manu and he explains that there is a basement in that little room that they were doing the medical procedure in, and in that basement there are sewer grates that lead to the main sewer outside. The only caveat of that is that the intern that got bit quite a while ago at this point is the only one who had the keys, and Caesar tells them that they need to go to his apartment and find the keys before, unfortunately, the inspector fists his way through the door, grabbing Caesar by the head and starts gnawing at his brains, followed by the rest of the gang running for their lives because Caesar is now infected. They get attacked on the stairs and Manu swiftly deals with it by breaking her neck. They're trying to remember where the intern lives, but it's no use because they are so flustered, and Angela comes up with a plan to go back down to the lobby and check the mailboxes for the names, and they do just that. They find the number of the apartment that the intern lived in and go to make their way back up the stairs, but this is where they see that the mother is now infected, but luckily she's handcuffed, so they just kind of shimmy their way past her and make their way back upstairs. But it is not long before they run into another infected on the stairwell. It lunges at Angela and gets very fucking close to infecting her, but Manu makes his way up the stairs and restrains the zombie by putting something around its neck, and Pablo puts the camera down for once, yippee, fucking success, and helps Manu take it out before the zombie drops dead in front of the camera, and we get a long shot of this beautiful face right here. And now I just want to take a little breather here because shit's about to get even more off the rails, which I didn't think was possible, but I have to give credit where credit is due. Not only is the found footage aspect of this movie just top notch, like probably the best you can do a found footage movie, but the acting is fucking insane. It is so good. It adds a lot of tension, it adds a lot of like suspense and just this overall hope that they will make it out okay because you just feel for them. when you hear this acting. But anyhow, back to the movie. They hear a scream coming from downstairs and they make a run for it. And not long after, the lights get switched off and they are in pure black darkness. Pablo struggles for a while to get his camera light on, but when he does, we see this spooky bitch right in front of us. Scared the ever-living shit out of me. I didn't appreciate that. Angela holds her back for a bit before Manu comes and takes over the action, eventually pinning her down and using a mallet to bash her fucking brains in. And they continue their way up to the apartment. They head in and they frantically look for the keys, and this room, gentlemen, is spooky. Fuck me. Like, not only is it just intense due to the acting and just everyone knows that feeling of trying to search for something in a panic, and this scene gives it off very well, but the room is in pitch black darkness, there's food still on the table with the TV still on, and the nice little cherry on top to add to this creepy moment is Angela at some point hits her head off of the camera and it kind of fucks with the audio for a little bit and messes it up. And keep in mind that Manu is outside holding down the fort for this entire situation, so stakes are very high. They eventually stumble across multiple sets of keys and they decide to take them all, but when they leave, Manu is nowhere to be seen. They call out his name and they look down the stairs and they see many infected following suit looking up at them, including Manu, who is now infected. Rest in peace for the king. This man put in so much effort for these two cunts and somehow he's the one that got infected. It's very sad. They run upstairs and they get to an apartment and they frantically try to find the right key, and this scene had me clenching my ass like no tomorrow. I had glutes of steel by the end of this fucking movie, but in true movie fashion they somehow find the right key just in the nick of time, which is impressive to say the least. Like, they have at least 50 keys in front of them here. That's fucking crazy. But they make it in last second and they close the door behind them. This is when shit, I wouldn't say goes off the rails, but it goes from, you know, this exciting, fast-paced, action-packed type of thriller movie to genuine fucking horror. And now it's important to mention that throughout the entire movie there is mentions of the penthouse, which is where they are now, and every single time it is brought up they are told that there is a person who owns it, but they are never here. But I just wanted to mention that to paint the scene for what's about to happen next. Because before turning his light on, Pablo says that they should be safe here, no one should be here. But when the light turns on, he sees that they are in a fucking room from hell, with weird cult-like cutouts from magazines all over the walls, test tubes, and just a bunch of weird stuff with a load of, you know, religious symbolism all over the apartment. Before Angela notices a cutout from a magazine or a newspaper on the wall that reads, "The Vatican investigates a possible possession of a young girl." And they soon come to the realization that there are multiple of these cutouts from the same case. Shit really hits the fan when they find a tape recorder that, when they eventually click play on, they hear a man on the other end talking about some sort of enzyme or some sort of infection. And he mentions something about a girl, that he had to seal the room in order for her to not get out. All signs pointing to this girl being the same girl from all of the cutouts on the wall. But while they are listening to this, they walk into another room that just looks like it is ripped straight out of a fucking hospital, with loads of little knickknacks and signs of some sort of experimentation going on here. But before they could even comprehend what's happening, suddenly the attic door flies open, and Pablo with his trusty camera sticks it up into the attic's opening and slowly moves the camera around. Nah, go fuck yourself. I will tell you one thing, there was a few fucking particles of fecal matter running down my leg after this scene. I fucking shit myself. During this scene, that kid in the attic ends up breaking the light on the camera, like completely shattering it, leaving them stuck in the dark. But Pablo has a big brain moment and chooses to use the night vision of the camera to lead the way. But it's not long until they see this lanky, terrifying, horrible looking bitch in the fucking darkness with a fucking hammer. They move away and hide in a corner and try to stay as quiet as possible while she is looking around for them, and Angela is not doing a very good job at all at that. But like, we just get this uncomfortably long scene of this fucking horrific looking creature going around this apartment and just investigating shit, trying to find them. And even this very close-up shot that I'm gonna blur for your pleasure, because like, I'm a straight boy, but this is the first time that I have seen tits and been terrified. Never in my entire life has tits ever given me this visceral reaction of fear before. But after a little bit, they see an opening to try and sneak past the woman, and it seems to be working until Angela, being the smartest in the bunch, ends up knocking something over, making a loud bang, and the woman locks onto them and attacks. After a few swings and a miss, she eventually grabs onto Pablo and beats him to death with the hammer. And in the background while this is happening, you can see Angela fucking frantically feeling her way around the room and struggling very hard. She eventually finds the camera and picks it up and uses the night vision to look around the room, and she eventually sees that the woman has grown a bit of a liking for Pablo because she has her entire mouth on his face. The woman instantly throws Pablo aside and starts attacking Angela after she lets out a scream because she's a silly cunt, but she manages to get away and hides under a bed while you can hear the woman frantically looking around for her in the background. But suddenly there is a long wave of silence, giving us that small sense of hope that she will make it out of... Never mind, she's dead. And that is the end of Wreck. This movie was a banger. I don't think anyone needs me to say that. It's out for a long time. And I also seen this movie a long time ago. I remember a lot from it. I remember certain moments, like that little kid in the attic still got me somehow. I remember that lanky bitch at the end. So when I first started watching this movie, I was under the impression that I kind of merged two movies together in my mind over the years since I've seen it, because nothing that I was seeing at the start of this movie was logically adding up to what the fuck we seen at the end of this movie. So I completely thought that I misremembered, because before I started watching, I remember it being such a big thing, even I would call it like some sort of plot twist, that it wasn't zombies, it was more of like a religious thing, like Christianity type of thing, where somebody was possessed by demons. So it's more of a spiritual type of possession more than, you know, a viral fucking possession, I guess I should say. But I do really like that because it makes it a little bit different than the other stuff. But out of all of the ones that we have seen, this is the first one that involved any sort of religious fucking possession. And a lot of people might not know this, but I am Christian. You know, I'm not a practicing Christian, or I'm not like a fucking diehard Christian, you know, but I do believe and I am a part of the religion. But when it comes to possession, you know, it's one of those things that's like, I need to see it to believe it type of shit. But even though I don't believe in it in real life, I do really enjoy possession movies, concepts and shit like that. So to see that put onto a zombie topic was really interesting to me. But I don't really have too much to add to it. Like, obviously this movie's been out a while, people love it a lot. So there's not much that I could really say that hasn't already been said. The acting was incredible. The way that they went about the found footage and, you know, the motivations for why he kept filming. Although some of the moments were like, come on bro, put the camera down for a second. In terms of found footage, in terms of just like a zombie survival type of scenario, this is one of the best out there. Full stop. The plot twist of the girl's dog being the reason the infection spread, all of these things were just so well thought out, so well written, and just really well executed. Full stop. I just thought it was a great watch. It was really fun. And like, in terms of zombie movies, it might be the scariest, especially given how claustrophobic it is, how we only have one perspective from start to finish, and it just becomes a lot more scary because of that. But I was definitely a lot more tense, a lot more like genuinely scared at moments, especially when that little girl showed up. I might start recording my like actual like watching of the movies, because gentlemen, like, I was actually bricking it. I was like a little girl. No, a little girl would be braver than me in that moment. I was literally just like, stay away, demon, be gone, witchy, be gone. If that's something that you would be interested in, let me know. I might like do it as like a Patreon thing or just like a YouTube members thing. So let me know if you would be interested in seeing like the actual like raw reactions and shit like that of me watching the movie. Maybe even if you want like a nice behind the scenes showing the process from start to finish of how I make these videos, let me know down below and I will definitely give it a go. But yeah, with that all said, I hope you enjoyed. Leave a like if you did, comment down below what you thought of the video. Make sure to share with your friends, get the videos out there, although the videos have been doing absolutely phenomenally. Like, every single one has just blown my expectations out of the water, so thank you all for that. But I will be doing a 5k Q&A Q&A. So if you have any questions, go onto the channel and just look at the post that I'm about to put up and ask any of your questions there. You can ask as many as you want, doesn't have to be one. And yeah, I'll get that up as fast as I possibly can for you. But yeah, again, appreciate you all. Thank you again. And yeah, with that all said, it's been EXO, and I'll talk to you all later. Have a good one, folks.